What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. The Chicago Bulls finished last season with the record of 31-41, and although they've been developing a really solid young core for a while now, over the course of the past few years, they've really failed to add some solid pieces around that core as well. But that might have just stopped now because over the course of the past few days or so, the Bulls have had some fantastic new additions with players like Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso off the bench. And all of a sudden, in my opinion, the Bulls have thrown themselves into the mix to be able to do some real damage in the Eastern Conference. So today we'll be breaking down, previewing the Chicago Bulls roster, mainly the starting five, but also taking a look at their bench depth as well. And then overall just breaking down how the newest additions will be impacting that Bulls depth chart. Just before we do get into the video though, if you guys do enjoy what you see today, please do me a huge favor. Smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs as we do push to 10,000 subscribers. But anyways, let's get into the preview, obviously starting at the point guard position with one of the Bulls' newest additions in Lonzo Ball. Last season, Lonzo averaged 14.6 points per game, 5.7 assists, and 4.8 rebounds, and really showcased his potential as an improving all-around point guard at the NBA level. The most developed part of Lonzo Ball's game is, of course, his playmaking ability and his ability to both facilitate the basketball and run an NBA offense. I think this is going to work really, really well with some of the pure scores that the Chicago Bulls do have now. But much of Lonzo's game does string from that high basketball IQ that he has and transitions especially onto the defensive side of his game. He's a very strong defender from that guard position, a developing two-way player at the NBA level. But the most intriguing part of Lonzo's game is his improving shot-making skills. Everybody, really since he's come into the NBA, has known that the biggest weakness in Lonzo's game, again, is that efficiency from really everywhere, particularly his three-pointers though. But since then, Lonzo has quietly become a very solid spot-up shooter. Last season increased his three-point percentage to just under 39%, which is more than respectable, and has a field goal percentage of just under 50%. So those percentages are definitely increasing. Over the course of the past two seasons, a little bit of an interesting stat, he's actually shooting 39.7% on catch and shoot threes. So I think that this is, in terms of the improvements that he's making in terms of his shooting game, something the Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bulls fans are going to be able to definitely look forward to. As we'll continue to sort of cover out throughout the video as we get through the rest of the roster, the complexion of the Bulls roster, starting with Lonzo Ball, is very complementary. And what's super important here with both Lonzo and even DeMar DeRozan, who loves the ball in his hands, is being able to take some of the weight of the offense off of Zach LaVine's shoulders, who took a huge step forward last year. We'll get to him just next, but I think that's going to be a huge benefit for sort of the dynamic of this Bulls rotation. So obviously shooting guard Zach LaVine, coming off a phenomenal statistical season, averaged 27.4 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4.9 assists. Zach LaVine is a very developed, very solid scorer, bases his game, of course, off that tremendous athleticism around the rim, and actually shoots a very high volume of three-pointers, at a career high of 8.2 three-point attempts per game last year, but I think is going to work really, really nicely into the scheme, in my opinion, as long as he's willing to see a little bit less of the ball. But I genuinely think with Lonzo and DeRozan there, that Zach LaVine's game is going to get a lot more efficient this year. Just one thing that I do want to touch on, I will have Zach LaVine at the 3, Zach LaVine at the 2, DeRozan at the 3, which does mean that the Bulls are going to be running a 3-guard rotation, but I'm not surprised at this at all, and I fully expect this to be the direction that the Bulls go, especially with Billy Donovan as the coach now, who ran a 3-guard lineup in his final season with the Thunder. So it is going to be a bit smaller of a lineup, but I definitely think, again, this is the right direction for the Bulls to go. Small forward is their newest addition in DeMar DeRozan, a guy who over the course of the past few seasons has really surprised me. Last year averaged 21.6 points per game, 6.9 assists, 4.2 rebounds, but what's really been surprising to me about his game is his increase in terms of the effectiveness, in terms of his shot selection and playmaking abilities. A really interesting stat is since 2018-19, DeRozan actually ranks 3rd in ISO scoring efficiency out of 104 players with at least 200 chances, and actually only sits behind both Steph Curry and James Harden, and ahead of guys like Kevin Durant. So some very, very good company in terms of DeRozan's ISO scoring. DeRozan is an inconsistent three-point shooter, but he has, again, impressed me with his ability to take a leadership role, shown that in the Spurs offense, and the way that he ran that offense was super, super impressive. Now, the Spurs were not a tremendous offense. They weren't a great three-point shooting team, but DeRozan definitely took a step up, and I think, now moving into a Bulls team that is a pretty solid three-point shooting team, I'm very optimistic about what he can do to sort of help mentor a guy like Zach LaVine. Power forward is the Bulls' most interesting position in terms of still for the rest of the offseason. You're not really sure what direction they're going to go. Lauri Markkanen is still not signed. He's a restricted free agent. And to be honest, sort of the rumors that have been surrounding this Bulls 4 position has been that he's going to get signed and traded so that they will not start with him at the 4 next year. That being said, 2020, 2021, Markkanen, 13.6 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, which again isn't bad. But the thing that worries me if you do leave Markkanen at the 4, you look at the defense of DeRozan, which we know is essentially non-existent. You look at the defense of Vucevic, and we'll get to that in just a second, but his interior defense, not great by any means. And to be honest, Lauri Markkanen isn't a phenomenal defender either. So it makes sense to let Markkanen go, use the 4 as sort of a position to gain any defense you can. Guys like Biyombo, Iguodala, if you can get them for cheap enough, are guys that you could definitely sort of slot into that 4 position, and again, would be really, really cheap. So I'm curious to see where the Bulls do end up going if they actually do re-sign Markkanen. But right now, from sort of an outside perspective, because again, I'm not a Chicago Bulls fan, but from an outside perspective, I would think that he doesn't start with the team next year. At the center position is Vucevic. Now, if you look on really everywhere on social media, the Bulls are really, really gaining support, but it's everything talking about the Bulls having a big 3 with DeRozan, Lonzo Ball, Zach LaVine. Now, those are obviously great players, but let's not forget about what Vucevic not only has done in the past couple of seasons, but really still can provide the Bulls in this upcoming season. 2020, 2021 averaged 23.4 points per game, 11.7 rebounds, and 3.8 assists. Vucevic gives the Bulls another really interesting look in the lineup, especially offensively. He's got a great ability to facilitate the basketball from the post and is a fairly decent three-point shooter for his size. So I'm telling you, they got shooters all over the court. And he actually did so last year with an increased volume of three-point attempts. The main concern for Vucevic is the main concern for the Bulls, I think, in the entire starting lineup, which is the defense. And especially when you have a guy like DeMar DeRozan at the 3. Who essentially had non-existent defense when he played in the Spurs. You would like your center to be sort of able to help DeRozan out there and be a really good interior defender, interior shot blocker, but that's just not Vucevic's game. That's why I think it's so important for the Bulls to make a defensive improvement at the 4 and make sure that defensively off the bench, they're a very solid team, because it's definitely the weakness of the Bulls right now. Quickly, I don't want to spend too much time on the bench, but there's 3 players I do want to at least briefly cover in a much deeper bench this year, and they really do need to take a step up. They were 17th in the NBA last year in scoring, but they got a lot of solid players. First guy, Coby White, averaged 15.1 points per game last year, had over 4 rebounds and 4 assists. He's definitely a future point guard, and what he did last year in terms of production as a second-year guard at the NBA level is super impressive, and I think Bulls fans definitely like the direction and trajectory that his career is going at the early part. Alex Caruso is an interesting one. Not only was he a new addition for the Bulls, but you can make all the memes and jokes that you want about Caruso, but this was a very, very solid addition, and Bulls fans are really going to like Caruso. He might have only last year averaged 6.4 points, 2.9 rebounds, and 2.8 assists, but he did provide the Lakers with 20-plus minutes over the course of the season, and in terms of advanced metrics, he's actually one of the more quality bench and role players in the entire league. He's actually rated one of the most quality players down the stretch of games in the quote-unquote clutch moments. Now, I'm not saying he's one of the most clutch players in the NBA, but again, if you guys know all those stats, that's pretty impressive. And in terms of defensive efficiency, he's actually one of the top defensive rated guards. Definitely something that the Bulls could use off the bench. And then finally, Patrick Williams was the surprise of the draft last year with how high the Bulls took him, but it seems like they might have known what they were doing after all. Last year, 9.2 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, which is not bad by any means as a first-year rookie for the Bulls in that lineup. He takes a heavy amount of mid-range shots, but showed potential to extend some range out to the three-point line. And of course, common theme, gives Bulls some more defense from the bench, is going to be super, super impressive, especially if Patrick Williams does make or does contribute a high amount of minutes, which I do expect that he will. But anyways, guys, if you did make it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, comments, predictions on anything that I talked about today or regarding the Bulls in the upcoming NBA season. But anyways, guys, again, if you did enjoy today's video, please, please, please do me a favor. Smash that thumbs up button. Subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and hope to see you again next time.